And so it is with the things of what St. John of the Cross, a mystic in the early history of the church, said are the dark night of the soul. They're usually tough questions or things we are trying to figure out. And sometimes it is so dark that even a little light or a candle would be a great help. The cry of Isaiah, the 58th chapter, which was a conversation back between the people of Israel and God. And frankly, God was upset with them because they were going through religious motions, but he said, you're oppressing your neighbors and you're not treating people who work for you well, and the hungry aren't being fed, and the poor don't have clothing. And so there's this exchange in Isaiah 58. And then God says, but when you do the right thing, the light will begin to dawn like the morning. And there's one thing beautiful I experienced by living here on the island. And the fishermen know this, and others who are up early in the morning know this, that while it may be dark at night, there comes a dawning that is so glorious on the waters that cover this island. And it's beautiful. Sat there this morning. It's always a good morning when I wake up and I see sunlight is out. Catherine and I had a cup of coffee and looked out over the water and saw the sun. And it was great. And God said in Isaiah, when you do what is right, the light is going to break forth like a glorious dawn. The call of Advent, anticipating the coming of Christ, is a call to both confront the darkness, but not just to confront the darkness, it is to light in spite of the darkness. This week, I read a speech that was given 45 years ago, this coming December the 10th. When Martin Luther King Jr. went to Sweden and accepted the Nobel Prize for Peace in 1964. I read the entire speech, and I was struck by the fact that he said, we still struggle here in 1964 for freedom and for the dealing of oppression of slavery. But I have great hope and I have great faith that where we are does not limit us from where we're going to be. And it's that hope of Advent that in the midst of the darkness, whether it's in society and the problems that we face as a country and as a world, or whether it's the personal things that we face, that the light that comes from doing the right thing guide us along the way. I love that poem by Wendell Berry, which I read to you this morning, where he leaves the comfort of the warm wood stove and the chair and the book and goes out into the darkness of the night to the barn, guided by a simple light, looking for the gleam coming from the barn, and goes in to take care of this new birth of some of his flock. And that so much is what life is like. Birth and living is not an easy process. And the giving the birth of new ideas, or the birth of new life and new dreams and new hopes, takes a lot of work. It requires us to leave our comfort zones, which is never easy. As much as I love change, I love predictability, if that makes sense to you. I want my seat available at Harbor Cafe all the time. I don't care who else sits there when I'm not there. But I want the predictability of that. I stay in regular hotels regularly throughout the state of Maine. If they make a change, sometimes I drive Catherine nuts because I ask for the same room. Same room number. Now they're all the same, but I need the same room number. I mean, if I have to spend part of my life there, I want predictability. But like Wendell Berry's farmer, we too are called into the dark night. And sometimes we just have a little lamp to guide us along the way. Not a lot of information, not sure of how it's going to all turn out in this birthing process that's going on in the barn. But great things have been born in the barn, and a great Savior was born there. Through the darkness of the night, the hope of Advent, and we light a candle, and we say, we hope. We hope. And in the words of Martin Luther King that are in your bulletin at the top of the front page this morning, darkness cannot drive out darkness. It requires light. So we are called to a great task on this island and in our lives, personally and collectively, to become light. Jesus put it this way. No one has a candle and puts it under a bushel and hides it. So he said, we must let our light shine in the darkness. In another passage in the gospel, he said, you are the light of the world. The world this morning may have parts that are very dark. Poverty, mortgage foreclosures, illiteracy. I read one statistic, and I don't know if you saw this or not, that sometimes upwards of 50% of high school students drop out in the United States. The darkness of all of that and the hopelessness of that. I'm saying this morning that in Advent, when we light the candle of hope, let it light with our lives. May we be people of hope. Hopefulness is not hiding our head in the sand and denying reality. It's not denying that things are tough. But it's seeing the darkness as the farmer did as he walked to the barn, guided by those stars and that simple light. And after he took care of the others in the barn, he said, I've got to take care of myself. And he went back into the house. There's great comfort this morning in doing the right thing. And when we as a people do the right thing, personally and collectively, the light breaks forth like that glorious dawn on this bay out here. Amen.